I've coached clients to IFBB and natural pro cards, from first show to pro. And I've done that using diets that do not require specific foods. And often we actually don't even need daily cardio. In today's podcast, I want to talk about, do specific foods matter? When we think about creating nutrition programs, whether it's for fat loss, like contest prep for aesthetic athletes, whether it's for strength athletes, which I've helped to world records and elite totals, performance athletes, just regular people wanting to lose fat, build muscle, look better, do we need to have specific foods in our meal plans, in our nutrition system, in order to get the best results? The answer is no. And I want to make today the case as to why that is the answer. I want to encourage personal trainers, coaches, individuals to think of foods more as categorical rather than thinking that a specific food is good or a specific food is bad, or that you have to eat certain foods in order to get the best results. When I was growing up, everybody had eggs and oatmeal for breakfast. I absolutely hate oatmeal. I had a lot of clients that were lactose intolerant. It just didn't work. But that's what everybody in the magazines, and yes, I am that old, that's what everybody in the magazines said that you're supposed to do. Then when we got into the internet, everybody was saying the same thing with, chicken and rice and broccoli, but you have a lot of people who have digestive issues with broccoli. Some people, they don't like chicken, they don't like the texture, the consistency of it. Then I started working with people who are vegans and vegetarians, and it was like, well, that was definitely not going to work, but yet we still wanted to get the best results. And we were able to do that in every single situation. It's not uncommon, and it's actually the more common practice to have specific foods included in meal plans, in nutrition programs and diets. The reason why is it makes it easy to understand. Doesn't make it easy to do long term, but it makes it easy to understand, and therefore it typically makes it easier for the person to start. A lot of times why people hesitate to start diets is uncertainty. They don't know exactly what to do. So when somebody writes out for them the black and the white, just eat this, just eat this, just eat this, it's like, oh, I can do that. It looks simple on paper. So they say, okay, I now know exactly what to eat. I know exactly what time to eat. I'm going to do that. That sounds realistic in their mind. They're going to think that that sounds realistic in the sense of more so simplistic, in the sense that they can do it. When you start a diet with more conceptual information, that can be very overwhelming for people. I can tell you, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I have well over 3,000 clients at this point. I'm probably around 5,000 plus. Is a 25-year career, by the way. So those numbers are realistic. I used to teach at the university level. Had well over 500 students that I taught nutrition and weight training to, and so commonly I would hear, "Just tell me what to eat." In my younger years of my career, I would say, oh, that's great. That's going to make it so much easier for me if they'll just eat X, Y, Z. So I would just give them a plan that said, hey, here, just eat X, Y, Z. And it was great for a day or two. And then I would get, an email or a message that says, oh man, I just can't eat eggs anymore. Can I eat anything else? Like, what else can I eat other than eggs? And then, I normally have chicken and rice, but we ran out of chicken last night and I didn't know what to have. And there was all these cases in which these individual specific scenarios would come up to where eating just XYZ wasn't working. And then all of a sudden I had to create, okay, well, if this breakfast is best, here's another option. Well, then here's a third option. And all of a sudden I started writing options for meals. So I had this meal plan that was like, okay, option A, B, or C. Then lunch, A, B, or C. Dinner, A, B, or C. It's a lot of freaking work, for the personal trainer, for the coach, to have to write all that out. Then you eventually get the person to say, well, which meal's best? And it's like, well, probably the first one I wrote. but that's not the one that they're going to be able to do all the time. And then they start to believe that options B and C aren't as good. They try to avoid those, but then it becomes a lot of pressure for them to always get option A in, especially if they don't like the food or if they have a digestive issue such as lactose intolerance. And they start to believe that B and C options aren't going to produce the best results. They get frustrated, they get burned out, and the long-term success of the diet tends to fail. So when you start with meal plans, it's tempting to start with because it makes it feel easy to understand, and therefore we believe it's going to be easy to do. However, that's the complete opposite. It's actually going to be really freaking hard to do because it makes everything black or white, right or wrong. It's this or nothing. It's an all or nothing mindset. And if you've done any kind of self-development research or reading books or looking into it at all, you're going to realize and learn that an all or nothing mindset almost always leads to nothing. The all part of it is very temporary. If somebody's going to go all in, it's usually for short bursts. But once they run into the first obstacle, once they make the first mistake, they believe now that they've got nothing. There's no saving this. This is completely abandoned, completely ruined. They have failed, quote unquote, so they just quit. Meal plans with specific foods are easy to start with in concept. They're easy to start with, but they're damn near impossible to maintain long term. That is why I like to write my nutrition systems. I try to avoid using the word meal plan with clients. I usually just write nutrition program. It's a very dorky, generic term, but I don't want them to have any emotions attached to it. Therefore, a dorky, generic term is great. But when I write nutrition programs for my clients, I like to give them initially some options and say, hey, for this meal, we might be looking for between 500 to 700 calories. We want to have maybe at least 30 grams of protein. Here are some protein options. Here are the serving sizes that would get you around 30 grams. Then for the rest of the calories, you can get that from a mixture of carbs or fats, especially if it's a random daytime meal. If it's pre-workout, we might want to focus on carbs. If it's a meal completely away from their workout, another part of the day, maybe we could do a little blend of complex carbs and fats. So I might give them a little more options there or a little less options per meal. Pre-workout, for example, if we're trying to avoid fats, it's going to have naturally less options. But I like to give them options. Here are some protein options and the amounts you need. Here are some carb and fat-based options and the amounts that you can play with depending on how much of each one you want. So maybe they want a little more of the fat-based foods, they just eat a little less of the carbs, or vice versa. The nutrition programs I'll write for clients are conceptually based, meaning we know what each macronutrient will do for us. Protein repairs the body, and then if we eat above our repair needs, our maintenance needs, we can start to build new tissue, such as muscle tissue. We know that protein does that. Which protein is best can be varied depending on the individual. If somebody has lactose intolerance, I'm probably not going to give them a whole bunch of dairy. That wouldn't really help them out very much. If someone's vegan or vegetarian, I'm not going to list a bunch of meats. That's not going to work out well. So I like to give them options. If you have somebody who's pretty open dietary-wise, well, then they're going to have a lot of options. Whether they have, chicken breast, lean turkey, I don't care. Maybe I have a client who likes 96.4, like 96% lean ground beef. I feel like that's disgusting because it's so insanely dry, but she loves it. So, okay, great, go for that. We do have to be mindful of certain proteins are going to carry with them additional carbohydrates or fats along with that protein. A meat is an example where if you have 80-20 ground beef compared to 96.4, you're going to get a lot of fat-based calories. We do account for that in their nutrition programs because for each meal we're counting total calories and then the protein component of that meal. Since we do control total calories, that automatically controls carbs and fats for us. So therefore, we really only have to track two things, calories and protein, and those two things automatically then track carbs and fats. So I don't need them to track 1,001 things in their meals. They don't have to track all the macros. Actually, when I have clients use their nutrition data apps, one of the common ones is MyFitnessPal. I'll go into their account and actually narrow down what they can see. We start with them just being able to see calories and protein, and then we expand on that depending on what the individual case might be. If the person needs to watch cholesterol, they'll look at calories, protein, and cholesterol. If a person has a sodium-related issue, we'll look at calories, protein, and then we'll add sodium to be visible. I like to maintain the focus only on the things that matter most, so that way all of their attention goes to the things that matter most. Imagine that. This is a much, much, much easier in the sense of long-term consistency diet rather than specific food meal plans. Again, specific food meal plans look easy on paper. They're easy to comprehend right away. Therefore, we believe they're going to be easy to do. That is 100% false. That is not the case. People will not be able to stay with those long term. When we look at more open food choice diets or open food choice nutrition programs, that can be a little more difficult to understand at first. When you're giving somebody, say, 2 or 3 options for their meals, they immediately start to wonder, well, which option's best? So it's very important that we communicate with them that all of the options are best. And the reason why is all of the options contain the macronutrients that we want. As long as those macronutrients are in there, we're getting the results that we want. So once you can get them to understand that any of the options listed are equal, one of the ways I do that is I say, hey, look at what's not listed. I didn't list pizza. I didn't list ice cream. I didn't list candy. Those are not going to be the best food choices for us on a regular basis. So there are things that are not listed here. Therefore, that's intentional as to what is listed, and what is listed should work. Probably get rid of the word should there. What is listed will work. There we go. That's a better way of wording it. That allows them a lot more variability. And that's important because our life is variable. Our life is not regimented where we're going to be at the same place, have the same foods available every single day at, say, 9 a.m. So if they're supposed to have eggs and oatmeal at 9 a.m., they are not going to be in the same place every day of their life at 9 a.m. They're not going to always have eggs available. They're not always going to have oatmeal available. And they're probably not even going to always want to eat eggs and oatmeal. No matter how dedicated someone is, no matter how badly they want results, they're going to eventually need some food variety. We're going to need to have an open food choice system built out in order to have that long-term success. We know this. You know, if you normally have breakfast at 9 a.m., but you have a doctor's appointment that morning, you're going to mess up breakfast. Like, we're going to miss it. Especially if you have to get blood work and you have to be fasted. All of a sudden, that really changes a lot for the day. We also can just run into things that are unplanned. You know, if you have a family member that gets sick, all of a sudden you're going to change your day to account for that. People who have family, for example, they're your spouse and or kids or a relationship or whatever you're in, whatever ship you found yourself in, your other people around you are not always going to want to eat the same food every day. So maybe you like chicken and rice and you have chicken and rice every night for dinner. You know, the significant other, the kids are probably not going to want to have chicken and rice every day. So then you're like, okay, well, do I cook chicken and rice for me and then cook them these other foods? And now all of a sudden I'm cooking all this food at one time. That can feel very overwhelming. That takes a lot of time. We don't always have the time available for that. So it's helpful for us to have a little variety so that way we can eat along with the other people, but maybe portion things out as best fits for us. So I like family style meals that have meals that are compartmentalized. I think spaghetti and meatballs, you would have the noodles, you would have the sauce, then you would have the meatballs. You might take a different portion of those 3 things than everybody else in the family might, but you only have to cook those 3 things and everybody's happy. So that's the way I like to do nutrition, especially when we have other people in our life. I do the cooking and cleaning and all that for Meredith and I do choose, depending on the season of life I'm in and what goals I'm working on, to choose to cook multiple meals. But that's why I do the cooking, because I would not want to do that to Meredith. I'm not going to request that she cooks multiple meals just because I'm trying to be a diva. If I'm going to be a diva, I'm going to have it be at my own detriment, so I'll be the one cooking the meals. But there's a lot of variety to our life. We know that just those are a few examples. And then if I think about like my client examples, when we look, I mentioned, for example, IFBB Pro. Like when I help people get IFBB Pro cards, that's the reason why I say that in the intro is if you're not familiar with that, less than like 1% of competitive aesthetic athletes get an IFBB Pro card. So therefore, for me to say I've helped people do that is pretty badass. I'm happy for all of them, and I am happy for myself that I was able to help them do that. But that's an example where somebody was taking the results to the extreme. They want the best results, the results that only 1% of the world ever gets. And we were able to get those results with open food source nutrition programs. If we think about it, when we look for contest prep, that's usually when the food is most restrictive, and it's usually restrictive based on the amount. There's not a lot of variance that can happen. When we're in the off season, when they're trying to just build muscle and not get fat, they have a little more caloric variance. They can have a little more fun foods here or there. If they're a little over one time and they gain 0.0001 pound of fat, oh well. Whenever we're trying to diet though and get on stage, we have to get rid of all the fat possible. We do not want to give up anything that would be within our control. There are so many uncontrollables in life. We need to control the hell out of the things that are within our control. Specific foods there, we might think, okay, I want this is a little trickier in the sense that you also get into digestion rates of different foods. That's very important. Protein, for example, when they wake up in the morning, they've been fasting the entire time they've been sleeping. Therefore, they don't have amino acids, protein kind of flowing around in the blood. We want to hurry up and get a protein into the bloodstream as quickly as we can to start managing recovery, start preparing our body for the stress of the day. We would want to look at very fast digesting protein sources. That can be whey protein powder, that could be egg whites, it could be even if you want to do whitefish. I have a client who eats whitefish for breakfast. I know. Usually if you're a bodybuilder and you're familiar with tilapia, you're going to think that that's insanely gross, but she loves it. So she has tilapia and eggs and rice as her breakfast. She actually puts on hot sauce. That's what she likes. Okay, good for her. But we would look for fast digesting proteins, but there's even options within something that narrow of a category. When we look at post-workout proteins, same thing, we'd like to get those in pretty quick, but then daytime protein. If we now have a meal 3 hours later after our workout, and we're not going to have another meal for say 3 to 4 hours, we want a protein now that digests kind of slowly over those 3 to 4, maybe even 5 hours to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. We'd then be looking at protein sources that have that rate of digestion. You're going to be looking at maybe like chicken breasts, like a leanish type of turkey, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt. There's tons of options in there. But you can hear that I'm already just naming options. It wasn't like she had to have or he had to have chicken. That was the only thing they could have. It's chicken or everything's a failure. We have options. That is really, really, really important for us, as I said, to improve consistency. Even when somebody's doing a temporary kind of borderline psychopathic process of contest prep, they're still going to be doing it, often for 12, 16, 20, sometimes even 24 weeks, depending on where their body fat's at and kind of what level of conditioning we want to get down to. They're going to be doing that for a long time. You're looking at 3, 4, 5, maybe even up to 6 months of being very regimented with the way they're eating. They're not going to, it's unlikely that somebody's going to be able to do that in a just tell me what to eat. I'm going to only eat those things. I'll be able to do that for their entire time. Now, I have done those diets. I've done 3 diets where I lost 50 pounds in 10 weeks or less. One time I lost 50 pounds in 8 weeks. In all 3 of those diets, I only ate 1 meal. It was lean ground turkey with marinara sauce and brown rice. The reason why is I hate ground turkey. I hate brown rice. Marinara sauce gave it a little bit of moisture, but it didn't have any fats, so it kept the calories a little bit low to give me a little bit of moisture to the meal. Now, why did I pick turkey if I hate it? Why did I pick brown rice if I hate it? So I wouldn't overeat it. I knew that in that entire time I was dieting, if I was hungry enough to eat the turkey and the rice, then I was actually hungry. If I felt like I was hungry, if I was telling myself I was hungry, but I didn't want the turkey and the rice, then I probably wasn't actually that hungry. I was actually really freaking hungry, just not hungry enough, I guess would be a way of saying it. And that helped me lose that weight. I lost 50 pounds in 10 weeks or less, 3 different times. And it was because I ate only one meal the entire time. For 10 weeks, that was the only food I consumed. Was that healthy? Abso-freaking-lutely not. But it's a cool example of what human beings can do when they're completely crazy and they really want something badly enough. But even in that extreme case, 10 weeks was miserable, absolutely miserable. At the end of those 10 weeks, I absolutely did not eat turkey and rice again, brown rice again, for a really long time. I did switch up my foods. I purposely gained some of that weight back because it was more like a weight loss competition for myself, not a fat loss. So I wasn't doing it to actually keep all that off. I did want to keep some of the progress, but I knew a lot of it was going to be water weight manipulation. A lot of it was just temporary kind of insanity to see if I could accomplish a goal. It was mental toughness development. I wanted to toughen myself up. But in those cases, I was not going to be able to sustain that long term. 10 weeks is already an extreme example. Literally, if you try to eat one meal, just pick one meal, even if you like the meal, even if it was pizza and ice cream, something you liked, you're not going to probably want to do that as the only meal every single day for 10 weeks. It's very unlikely, it's very abnormal, but that is what people tell me when they're say like, oh, I want to lose X amount of weight, or I want to build muscle, I want XYZ, just tell me what to eat. That's essentially what they're telling me is, hey, just tell me what to eat. I'm going to eat that every single day. No, you won't. I literally know that because I have done it, and I've done it more than just those 3 times. I've done other experiments where I had only a singular carb source for 8 weeks at a time. One experiment was I had 3 different protein sources. It was whey protein isolate, eggs, and chicken. Those are the only 3 proteins I was allowed. And then I chose, my fat sources were macadamia nut oil and the egg yolk. Those are my 2 fat sources. So those were like my 5 things that I could switch around in. And then my carb source stayed consistent because I wanted to experiment how my body felt with that carb source. So for 8 weeks, I had just oats. That was a horrible experience. I hate oats. But it was what, all the bodybuilders said you should have. And I was like, well, dang it hell, if they all do this, let me just try it. So 8 weeks of oats being the only thing. Then I did 8 weeks of sweet potato. So the oats, for example, horrible bloat, no energy whatsoever, atrocious. Then when I went to sweet potato, it was delicious because I had just had oats for 8 weeks. But sweet potatoes were very heavy. It was a hard time actually getting in all the food that I needed. By the end of the day, I did not want to eat any more damn sweet potatoes. It was just too heavy. My body wasn't processing it fast enough. Then the third carb experiment was 8 weeks of just jasmine rice. Loved it. Still eat jasmine rice every day. That one was perfect. So it's like Goldilocks, like, the third one's just right. But that was another experiment where I did have some variety in my proteins and fats, but I had a singular carb source. And even that was, mentally taxing and pretty tough to do. So eating the same thing every single day, it's not practical. It just really isn't. You're not going to be able to do it long term. And typically, whatever results the person wants from their nutrition program, they're going to want to get those results and keep those results. So they're going to want the results long term. Therefore, it's better for us to use a long-term process. You don't have to do as much as what you do to get where you want to get. So maybe it takes 110% of what you have, meaning you have to get better. You have to change. You have to improve in order to get the end result. So you make that improvement. You expand yourself a little bit. You grow into the challenge of that goal. Then when you get there, it's going to feel a little more comfortable. You're not going to be feeling like you're maxed out at 110%. Maybe now it only feels like, okay, I do have to be mindful of what I do every day, but there's a little bit of wiggle room. It's only feeling like it's taking like 80% of my effort to maintain this. That's realistic. Where when we start it, it takes more than what we currently have, because otherwise we'd already have that outcome. Since we don't have it in us yet. We have to develop that. So it's going to feel like 110%. It's going to feel like something that stretches you. Then once you're stretched and you've learned that system, you've learned those behaviors, you've developed those habits, you've now got where you want to get, you're going to be able to feel like you're pulling back to just be able to maintain. But if we have to still sustain 80% of the good habits, we have to make sure that the process that we do to get where we want to get can be sustained at 80%. If you were to try to eat the exact same foods every single day, you're going to fall off way more than 80%. Way more by the time that you would reach your end goal if you are happen to be lucky enough to reach the end goal. So specific foods, they're not necessary in the sense that there isn't like one food that's best than anything else. There isn't one protein source that builds more muscle than other protein sources. There isn't one carb source that has the best amount of energy but the least amount of fat gains. There isn't one fat source, the same thing, same best amount of energy, least amount of body fat gains, maybe the best performance. There isn't singular foods that offer those type of outcomes. So specific food meal plans aren't necessary because of that reason, and they're not necessary in the sense that very quickly they become restrictive, they become very controlling. It's an all or nothing mindset, and that usually leads to burnout, that leads to failure. It is much better for us to develop an open food choice system. You can start with very few amount of choices so that way you don't feel overwhelmed. Learn what you're choosing from. Okay, if I want a protein, why am I choosing a protein versus a carb versus a fat? That's important, and that's helpful to know. And then, okay, well, within my proteins, why would I choose this protein over that protein? That's important, and that's helpful to know. Once you start to learn a few of these little things, you're now developing a system that you'll sustain for the rest of your life. You're developing a system that starts to be customized to your preferences, your life choices, your life schedule, your needs. It becomes actually your nutrition program. You're no longer following someone else's version of a diet. You're creating your own. And that's what I would encourage you to do. That's what I help all my clients do. If you want to see some of the stuff that we do with our clients, I do have a couple of programs available now that you can purchase. They're just $29. Made it relatively cheap, but still something to cover my time for creating them. You can go to C3Method.kit.com. The C3 method, 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E. So it's C-T-H-R-E-E method.kit.com. So C3Method.kit.com. On there, you're going to see a 10-week fat loss system. And then you're also going to see a 5-step nutrition coaching system for personal trainers. And I'm going to be putting up a 5-step mass building system here this week. So you can go to C3Method.kit.com, purchase any one of those 3, and it'll help you reach those goals, whether your goal is fat loss, whether it's muscle building, or if you're a personal trainer and you want to learn how to do nutrition coaching for clients, whether their goals are fat loss and muscle building or even performance, body composition change, whatever it might be. Those resources are available on C3Method.kit.com. You can also reach out on our website, C3Method.com. You can shoot me an email, C3Method@gmail.com. We are on Instagram. We're on YouTube. Where else are we on? LinkedIn. You can find us in any of those places. Send me a message, however you do it. Just get the message to me if you have any questions or if you need anything. If you want to check out those resources, again, C3Method.kit.com. I hope this was helpful and helped give a solid case as to why open food choice nutrition systems are best. As I said, I've helped people get the best of the best of the best outcomes. IBB and Natural Pro cards, taking them all the way from their first show ever to a Pro card with open food system diets. So awesome. If you need anything, let me know. Hopefully this was helpful. I appreciate you checking out the podcast. If it was helpful for you, please share it to other people, and hopefully it'll be helpful for them as well. So I'll appreciate it. Hopefully they'll appreciate it as well. If you have any questions, if you need anything, always reach out. We're always available to help. If you want any help with one-on-one coaching, that is what we do. So if you want any help with that, just let us know. Okay, that's everything. I appreciate your time, and hopefully this was helpful.